Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing and follow on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story to share or comments about the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. I'd like to remind everyone my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, is now available on Amazon. Not only does it take you through my medical problems from birth, but also a little bit about growing up on a farm and getting into radio and stand-up comedy. I think you'll enjoy it. Again, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, and it's available on Amazon. In this episode 83 of the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, we meet Brian Pitts, a man whose ordinary day turned extraordinary in the most unexpected way. One moment he was celebrating at a family wedding. The next, his heart stopped. After going into cardiac arrest, HCM, a condition he never knew existed until it nearly took his life. Doctors implanted a defibrillator to keep his heart beating, and eventually, Brian received the ultimate second chance, a heart transplant. His story is filled with courage, gratitude, and a dream that keeps him moving forward to one day sail maybe around the world as he enjoys sailing. This is a story about hope, healing, and living every day like it truly matters. We'll talk with Brian coming up next. All right, we are here with Brian today. I should say Brian with an I, like they spell my name with a Y. So it's kind of cool to have another Brian with a heart on with us today. But before we get started, Brian, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Brian Pitts. I'm 52 years old, and I'm 3.5 years post-transplant. I suffered from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and I never knew I had this congenital defect, and so kind of after the fact.
Now, how long did it go? Because I've talked to some other folks, that were diagnosed like you, and, sometimes they got misdiagnosed for quite a few years before they finally figured out what was going on. How was your experience with that? Did they figure it out pretty quick, or were you like one of those that were like, well, something's not right, but nobody seemed to know what?
No, I never really had any symptoms to complain about. Always a strong, virile go-go guy, very physical. And one day I was at a wedding for a family member down in Newton, Kansas, a couple hours away. And we were, partying and we were at the reception portion of the wedding, and I went into full cardiac arrest and I just kind of fell over. And that's all I remember of that. But I woke up the next day in Wichita, Kansas. They said, hey, you've got hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and we're going to put an implant in your chest.
You're like,
it was a shock. Yeah, it was really a wild ride. For the first 2 days, I didn't really have any short-term memory, and they would tell me this over and over. And they said, I'd say, why am I in the hospital? So we got a cardiac arrest, and we're here to have you assessed, and blah blah blah. And about 20 minutes would go by, and I'd be like, why are we here? My family found it hilarious. I didn't like it so much. And I'd get emotional every time, I'd get real upset and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I relived it a few times. So Dr. Farhart at the time at Via Christi Hospital, he explained it to me in detail when I finally could remember it. And I said, yeah, we're going to take you into surgery tomorrow. We're going to put this defibrillator implant in your chest, and it'll just kind of monitor and watch your heart and make sure this doesn't happen again. And he explained to me, the condition and its genetics. I was adopted, so we didn't really have any background of any, predetermining factors that, a father or brother or anybody would have had it. I did get genetically tested, and all of my daughters were genetically tested, and they all carry the gene as well. But nobody at this time is showing any signs of any kind of progression or development, which is fantastic.
Now I'm going to ask you this. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
go
you
ahead.
there.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you because I don't know. I don't really enjoy asking this question, but now with your defibrillator, this is the question I always love asking. Did it ever go off, and how many times?
Yeah, it did. The first time it went off would have been 2000. So I had it implanted about 2007. It fired in 2011. Wife and I were having a get together, and some friends were coming over, and it was pretty early in the evening. And I had a couple cocktails. I had two. I used to like to drink that sweet tea vodka. And I had two of those, and I was in the kitchen, and I felt a little funny. And I leaned on the counter, and I could tell I was having a run of palpitations. At least that's what it felt like. And boom, the thing hit me. And, it knocked me back across the kitchen. And I said, oh my God, I was just shocked. I'd never experienced that. And just like everybody says, you see the flash of white, and feels like a car battery's touched your chest. And so for the evening, all this stuff always happens on the weekends when you can't get a hold of doctors, really. So I laid in bed for the evening and just took it real easy. We knew the thing had done its job, and we followed up Monday morning. And the doctor said, yeah, it was an appropriate shock. You were going into VT again, or to ventricular tachycardia again. And my heartbeat had raced somewhere to about 280 beats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was going to go right into VFib. So it saved my life. And that's the day I stopped drinking alcohol. We had a long talk with the doctor about that. And he says, Brian, alcohol is a heart toxin. And he said, I can't tell you not to do it, but it certainly is going to irritate your heart. And sure enough, I think, a month or so went by, and I thought, maybe I could just sip on a beer real slow. And sure enough, it would give me flutters in the chest and kind of, I don't know if it would throw me into arrhythmia, so to speak, but definitely some palpitations and irritation. I'm one of the unluckies that is just vehemently aware of what my heart is doing, and I can feel all of it. So when I have palpitations, I'm very aware of them, where some people don't feel them at all. So yeah, we decided, it's a great time to just not drink alcohol anymore, and that was fine. So I went on and lived my life pretty normal. I would develop over the next few years a lot of palpitation storms. I'd wind up on amiodarone, which, in the heart community, we all know it's a pretty heavy drug with a lot of side effects. I was on that for about 5 years. I wound up being hyperthyroid from it, which is we could do a whole nother podcast about that. It zaps your energy. When you're hyperthyroid, you have no energy and you're weak. And it gets to the point in the morning when I would go to sit down on the toilet, I'd almost have to fall because my legs had become so weak that I couldn't hold my own weight. And I finally went to the doctor and I said, look, something is terribly wrong with me. I've got to have something really, really bad going on. And so they tested me for hyperthyroid, and they do it by doing a radioisotope uptake with iodine. And they tried to perform the test, and it came back inconclusive that my thyroid was already so full of iodine, it wouldn't absorb the isotope.
Oh, wow.
So I found out amiodarone, when you take it daily, it's like taking a year's supply of iodine.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's a heavy drug, and this happens to a lot of people on it, the thyroid thing. Um, so it took me about a year to wean off of that and take thyroid hormones to get back to normal levels of energy and strength and start feeling good again. Um, and the palpitations didn't really return. They kind of stayed normal, where I would have a palpitation storm every now and then and kind of be down for the day and not feeling real good. But then it'd go away.
So
Um,
I guess
those
I know
seem,
this.
uh,
I know
go
this
ahead.
is hereditary, but is there any chance to ever, or did anybody ever talk about an ablation with you, or is that even possible?
So they did scan my heart. They did the MRI and everything, and they ran, stress echo and all that kind of stuff. Um, and the portion of my heart that was causing this is on the exterior side. And they said it's far too dangerous to try to go in and ablate it because they'd have to penetrate the pericardium or the heart wall, one or the other. Uh, so they said I was not a good candidate, unfortunately. Because I know a lot of people do. They go in and do an ablation, and then boom, problem solved.
Yeah, because I
Um,
had racing. Now this is with my transplanted heart because I was transplanted in 2003, but then I started having some rhythm problems, and I was taking Imodium or whatever. I just got back on it again because I was off of it after the ablation. And then all of a sudden, it kicked in again, and they have another ablation scheduled. Actually, like this week. Believe it or not, the week that this will
yeah,
air is the week that I'll be. And actually, when
yeah,
this airs, I will be in the hospital getting an ablation.
that's amazing. Yeah, my wife recently this year started experiencing atrial fibrillation or AFib, and they've talked about ablation with her. They've got her controlled medically right now. But after talking through all of the steps and procedures and what's the best likelihood, and they say, ablation really it's about a 65 to 75% success rate. And generally they need to do it about 3 times to get it right. And so we said, okay, we'll just stick with the meds for now. Back to my story. So I would receive a second shock. And I'll jump back just for half a second. Um, the shocks are traumatic. And after that first initial shock, I noticed I became a lot more reclusive. I didn't want to go out in public a lot, really for fear of it happening again. And I didn't want to be that guy on the floor in Walmart flopping around. You know what I mean? Um, and it was always in the back of my mind. And so after that initial shock, every time I would have a palpitation storm, here comes the anxiety right along with it. Is this another time where I'm going to be shocked? And so for years, that was kind of my life, and that took a very long time to kind of get over. After the fact. So jump forward to 2011. I'm at the stove. No, I'm sorry. 2011 was the first shock. Jump forward to 2021. I'm at the stove. I'm doing some cooking for dinner. And again, I feel a run of palpitations, or what I think are palpitations, start, and it's lasting too long and it feels different. And I said, oh gosh, this is it. This is going to be it. And I call out to my wife and I get down on my knees and boom, the thing hits me again. And it's the hardest thing to describe to somebody who's never experienced it. And people that have experienced it know exactly what you're saying. Um, it's like the finger of God touching you. That's how I can explain it. It is so uncomfortable and bizarre. And again, saw the flash of white. This time we called paramedics. They came and ran their EEG, EKG on me and looked at my heart. They're like, you've got a right bundle branch block showing here. And so they transported me. And we ended up going to the hospital. And I had been signed up to do a right heart cath I was scheduled for about 60 days out, and they went ahead and did it. And they did this right heart cath, and they forwarded with their findings to my medical team at KU, my cardiologist. And so they set some appointments up, and they say, we're going to go over the results and the findings with you. And I get to KU, and they're like, we're going to do another one. We want to do our own. And I guess to look at the findings again. And so I get put off again another week or two to find out these results. And finally I come into cardiology. I sit down with Dr. Barenbaum at KU Medical Center. He's an expert in hypertrophy, amazing doctor. And he says, Brian, you're at the end of heart failure. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, you're an end stage heart failure. And I remember the blood like running out of my face. It felt like somebody had sucked the oxygen out of the room. And I just said, when was beginning and end and middle? Like nobody ever said I was in heart failure. I just had this hypertrophy thing. And he says, well, your heart's not functioning well enough. You're not perfusing enough blood. Septum between the chambers of your ventricle it's become too thick. And you're going to need a heart transplant. And I heard exactly what he said, but it wouldn't register. And I'm like, what, can you say that again? And he says, you're going to need a heart transplant. And my wife and I both were just like, oh my God. Because at that point, you're like, your life comes to a screeching halt. Everything that you planned and your hopes and your dreams are all now up in question. And so that's the road we started to go down. And it was, medical appointment after medical appointment after medical appointment. And we get into, I believe, January, and my wife and I both contract COVID.
Oh, wow.
And we are brutally sick. And this is the first COVID, the big one. And my heart is doing funny things, and I don't know what it's doing. But my team knows about it, and they say, hey, we're going to get you signed up for the monoclonal antibodies. It'll be probably Tuesday before we can get to you. But going into Saturday night, it feels like my heart's doing flip-flops in my chest. I'm short of breath, really tired. And this is going on 5 or 6 hours. And I told my wife, I said, Susan, I honestly think I might die tonight. And I was dead serious. I didn't think I'd make it through the night. And I get to Sunday, and I make it to Monday, and they say, you need to get to Truman Medical Center, and they give me the monoclonal antibodies. And within about 18 hours, I'm feeling much, much better. But I had transmitted my data to my team, and I get back that Monday afternoon, and they call me, and they say, Brian, you need to get to the ER immediately. You're in danger of dying. I was having giant runs of ventricular tachycardia. Ventricle are going about 150 beats a minute. The lower portion of my heart's just trying to keep up. And it's not fast enough for my defibrillator to recognize it, to shock me out of it. So with COVID, feeling better, but with COVID and my wife horribly sick, she drives me to KU Medical Center, downtown Kansas City, and drops me off at the door and says, well, call me and let me know what's going on. Because, with the protocols, nobody can come in with you.
And that had to be a hard experience alone, because I've been in the hospital and my wife is always there, with me. And I can only imagine what it's like to be dropped off, at the emergency room. And then you're on your own.
Yeah. And so they're expecting me. Cardiology called him and said, expect him. He's coming in. And I walk in the door and say, hi, I'm Brian Pitts. And they immediately put me in a wheelchair, and they're looking at me like, how are you walking? And I don't know. I just am. Well, they run me down the hallways about as fast as they can. And they do the whole code blue. And I'm like, well, they got to be talking about somebody else. Well, about 9 people come into this teeny tiny little ER room, and they are around me, and they are doing 1,000 things. And I realize, I'm the code blue. They're running the code on me. And that's when I started to get scared, like, oh, I might be dying. And they're trying to stabilize my heart because it's going about 150. And so eventually, over a couple hours time with lidocaine drip, they slow my heart down and say, you're going upstairs to critical ICU. And so I think it was very early in the morning, they take me up there. And that's when the cardiologists come in that morning to do rounds, and they say, we're passing, cardiology's passing me off to the transplant team. They're going to start all the testing to make sure I'm a good candidate and I can survive it and nothing weird's going to pop up being immune suppressed. And so I'm in hospital 12 days. If you've been through the testing, you realize they do everything.
Oh, yeah.
Good God, the tests, it was 5 or 6 tests a day, it seemed like. And I'm talking to my wife and I'm telling her what's going on. And, we're talking on the phone a lot, Facebook chat. And the reality sinking in, like, wow, this is really happening fast. And so they start me on 2 antiarrhythmics to kind of stabilize my heart. Not amiodarone this time. It was 2 others. And the names now escape me. I want to say dofetilide and miltixatine or something like that. But pretty heavy meds. You got to be in hospital when they start you on them. So I'm there. So they do it. And then they send me home. About 12 days pass, and they're like, hey, you're doing better. You're feeling better. You're COVID free. Your wife, she's coming to see me a couple times. She's COVID free. And they send me on home, and they're like, okay, you've been tested. You're going before committee, and you're going to hear from us in a day or 2 or 3. And they talked about me on committee on a Wednesday, and they called me on Thursday, and they said, Brian, you are approved for transplant. We're going to list you as a 4. We're just waiting for final insurance confirmation. Should come in tomorrow. So I'm listed, and I'm talking. I'm continuing to do medical visits, and one of them is the big one. You go sit with the surgeon and talk to them, and he's going through how things will go and how it's done. And he says, it'll probably be about a year. Best case scenario, maybe a year, maybe 6 months, but it's going to be a while. You're a 4. My blood group was good, and I'm A positive, which is a little more rare, which works in my favor. And hypertrophy, that's where you get listed as a 4. So I go home and I'm like, okay, it's going to be a while, but you start getting your effects in order. Nobody really tells you this stuff. I didn't have a mentor to talk to about it. But I'm thinking to myself, what do I got to do if I don't survive this? And so I sat down, I wrote out, I guess you could say, a last will and testament. I don't have a lot of stuff to give away, but I told my wife, disperse my things among my friends and family who wants them and sell the rest off. And wrote letters to my children, and the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and just sat there doing it, just sobbing and thinking about the pain it's going to cause to leave all these people behind. And so about 60 days has passed by this point, and I have another giant run of tachycardia. I don't get shocked, but I felt it, and I transmitted the data. They read the data and say, absolutely, you had a huge episode of tachycardia. We're going to admit you. Come to the hospital now. You're not leaving without a heart. So they escalated me to a 2 on the list. And we're thinking, oh my God, we're moved up so quickly. And I've got my go bag packed, which I grab. And then Susan, my wife, she's like, well, let's take some stuff because you're probably going to be there at least a couple of weeks, maybe a month or more. Who knows? So she packs this great big kind of goodie bag of just kind of snacks and stuff and water. We get there and like they're expecting you to just go up to the 9th floor and to room, whatever it was, I think 218 or 918. And I show up and I know the nurses because I've already been there, 12 days prior, a couple months earlier. And I settle in and talking to one of the nurses that I know that had taken care of me before. And everything's going pretty normal. My wife comes and goes each night, and I got a couple friends that come visit. Well, by the third day I'm there, I'm sitting and talking to a friend for a couple of hours that's visiting me. And he gets up and leaves at about 10 o'clock. And I get the phone call from my coordinator. Hey, Brian, we've got a heart for you. I'm like, you're kidding. I've been here 36 hours and I'm getting a heart. And he says, yeah, if everything checks out with his heart, we're going to go into surgery likely, middle of the day tomorrow. I said, oh my God. So I call my wife. Well, I didn't call her. We had a system set up where, the Alexa at home, you can listen to the music and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I told her, I said, hey, if I get a heart, I'll play a song and you'll know. And I was going to play the Rocky theme, dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da, da. But somehow I accidentally played the Superman theme. I turned the volume all the way up and started blaring it. And she's in her office at 10:30 at night. And she's like, oh my God, I heard it come on. I knew exactly what it was that you got your heart. And so we talk, we're crying and carrying on. And she's like, I'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. And I'm NPO at this point, because I'm going to go into surgery the next day. So I don't sleep, I don't think at all. I think I might have dozed off for a couple hours.
Well, I can only imagine your brain's going
a
million miles an hour right now.
Yeah, you're amped and just running scenarios and just crazy.
I do want to ask you one question though. How far, because now with me, when I got my transplant, I was in Tampa General Hospital and we lived in Fort Myers, which was about 2 hours away. How far was your wife away?
About 50 minutes, luckily. And we're so lucky to live in Kansas City with two world-class transplant centers, St. Luke's Medical. They've been doing them for a decade or more. And then KU had recently recertified, and I would wind up being their 159th patient for heart transplant. And a great team, really a growing and top 10 tier, top rated transplant center. So the next day, they keep pushing it back, which is to be expected. Hindsight, that's totally normal. I talk to patients now, they're like, I'm going to be transplanted tomorrow at 1 a.m. And I'm like, no, you're not. It'll be 10 hours later.
Yeah. What I did when I got the word, I called my wife and my children, and this was like in the middle of the night when I got the word. So they flew up there as fast as they could, to be at my side when they took me away. And they got there 6 o'clock in the morning, and they were all ready, and we sat there till 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon before they finally said, okay, we're taking it now.
Yeah. It's always longer than they expect. And unless it's a scenario where it's in hospital. I don't know how common that is, but I would find out later my heart came from about an hour away by flight. And then I found out even years later who my transplant was. We can talk about that in a minute. But I was scheduled for 6 or 7 in the evening, and I didn't actually push back to surgery until 11:30. And then I remember being wheeled back, and I'm in the operating suite on the metal cross table, which is strange. And I remember talking to the nurses and okay, here we go, count backwards. And so my heart from that point around 11:30 or midnight-ish wound up being 4 more hours later. It wound up late. And I'm told it's because they found more recipients that could take other organs. And of course, they take the heart out the very last because it's the organ providing blood for everything else. So I remember my surgeon, I was told that he was pretty upset about it, that I was anesthetized, and I don't know if I was on bypass that long or not. I don't know how far along in the process I was before they found out, okay, the heart's now late. So surgery and the total period was about 9 hours. My wife and 2 friends were in the waiting room. COVID protocols were still kind of in place, and they were a little weird about it, but the next day, around 5 a.m., I think it was when I was done, And they're like, man, you started waking up like 3 hours after surgery. And they're like, no, it's too early. You can't wake up. And I guess I was fighting sedation. And they put me back under for a few more hours. But I think around 10:30 or 11 the next day, I was awake. And I remember coming to with the tube in my throat, which is wildly uncomfortable, and a little panicked. And thank God my wife, I could see her in the hall standing there. And I started, blinking my eyes and moving my hands. And she's like, hi, how you doing? And she's like, they're going to get that out of you pretty quick. And the nurse came over and talked to me. And she said, hey, big guy, I need you to just, try to take real big, deep breaths for me. And if you can do that for half an hour, we'll take that tube out of you. And if I could have had a superpower at that moment, I would have willed the time to go faster. The tube was so uncomfortable in my throat. But then they took it out, and I'm like, hi, how you doing? Scratchy, barely could talk, but generally feeling pretty good. My biggest complaint was, did you guys go through my back to put my heart in my chest? Because my back is killing me. And it's from laying on that damn table.
And they stretch you and they fold you, and it's like you wake up and you're going, everything. I mean, what should be hurting isn't hurting.
Yeah, my chest felt fine. My back, it was brutalized. And it was from laying on that table for 9 hours in the cross formation, my arms out at your side. And my scapula muscles, top of your shoulder blades, oh my God, they hurt so bad. And so they had me on pain meds, and it kind of helped. And they had to switch a couple around. And 15 hours after surgery, I was walking the hallway, and the doctors were just amazed. They're like, Brian, you're kind of unusual case here. And now that I've seen some patients go through it, mostly they're keeping these people sedated now for a couple of days. And so within day 3, I'm up at the step down unit. They moved me up a floor, and things are pretty normal. I'm like, when can we eat? I remember being starving. I ended up being NPO for like 28 hours or something. And I remember coming out of surgery, and I'm like, man, I'm starving. And they're like, well, you can eat, just take it easy. You just had a heart transplant. And so I did. I think I had an omelet and some fruit and a little Jell-O, and felt pretty good. I wound up being in the hospital 9 days total. They wanted to send me home a little earlier. It would have been 6 days, but it fell on a Friday, and my tacrolimus level, the anti-rejection med, was a little low, and they said, hey, we're just going to keep you and make sure we get these med levels where we really want them, and we'll just send you home Monday. And I was like itching to get out of there. I was sick of being there. But when the day came, I almost didn't want to leave, because it becomes kind of your safe cocoon place to be, and they're taking care of you, and they're monitoring you, and if something goes wrong, they're right there, an arm's reach away. It reminded me of taking, the first baby home from the hospital. Like, you sure I can go home?
I know that safe zone though. Yeah. I can like feel weird, and I can have, I feel like, oh man, I'm not breathing right or something. And then as soon as you get in that hospital and you're in that hospital bed, you're going, I'm fine. I don't know if it's anxiety or what.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. Yeah, so we get home, wife she rented me a recliner from a company for the bedroom, and to go back and forth from the bed to recliner was kind of my normal life. And then I would walk around the house. I think the first 2 or 3 weeks, I'd just kind of walk around the house, and then got to the point where now I can walk around the yard. And that became my daily kind of routine. We have a pond on 7 acres with dogs. And, at first I couldn't walk far. I could walk out to the driveway, and that's about it. But it got to where I could walk around. I could do one lap around the pond, back to the house, and have that, horrible fatigue. Like, oh, wow, that is all I'm doing today. And that was enough. if you could walk, 20, 30 minutes a day, that's what they wanted you to do. And I remember right around the 6-month mark when I made it back to the house, and I'm like, wow, that fatigue's not there. I feel pretty good. And it just kind of got better and better from there. And I think by a year, I felt real good. And I was out doing stuff in the yard and, using the chainsaw and cutting up tree limbs and doing great. And then at my annual, when they take you back to the cath lab and do the right and left heart cath, they saw a little bit of CAV progression in my coronary arteries. CAV is cardiomyopathy vasculopathy. And it's pretty normal for all of us to get it. It's a unique form of coronary artery disease for transplant patients. And they don't know exactly why, but they kind of think maybe it's the chronic inflammation from real low level rejection, basically, within the coronary arteries. So they started to treat me for that a little bit. And they said, we'll look at it again in a year. And so we come back year 2, and it's been progressing. It's not doing great. At that point, they, I guess, labeled me or diagnosed me as stage 3 CAV, and that hit me really hard. That was kind of awful because I knew what that meant or potentially could mean is the heart is, not going to accept this. I'm not in rejection. I did have 2 bouts of rejection, which is not a lot to speak about. But CAV was like, man, this is now a ticking time bomb. Like, my coronary arteries are shrinking up.
Now,
so they started me on.
Did they say anything about, because I have the same problem, but they call mine donor-specific antibodies.
Yeah, so you've got a donor-specific type of rejection or antigen. My rejection first time was 6 weeks out. And I think they admitted me for 3 days, hit me with high-level prednisone, 1,000 milligrams a dose for 3 days each. And then the second time was about 6 months. And they did the same thing, but they did it at home. They let me just take the oral meds. So we squashed that. I was told at that point I'd be on prednisone for my life, but actually it was about 1,000 days, and they finally took me off of it. Thank God.
Oh yeah, that's some wicked stuff.
It really is. It's a wonderful, terrible drug, kind of like amiodarone. It comes with a host of problems. I'm positive prednisone is what pushed me all the way into diabetes, being type 2 diabetic now. That's, well controlled and well managed, and, encourages me to have a better diet.
Now, are you doing insulin, or can it be taken care of with a pill?
Yeah. So they switched me. It's a couple of things, really. It's what am I on? I'm on metformin twice a day, and I take is it Jardiance?
Jardiance. Jardiance is another one.
Yeah, Jardiance. I take Jardiance, and then I do a long-lasting daily morning insulin, and I'm on the trizepatide, which everybody knows it as the weight loss drug, but it really started as a diabetes drug. And I do that weekly. And I had started on semaglutide. And since then, so I've been on these 2 injectables for, at least 2 years now. And I've lost about 50 pounds. So I feel great. I need to replace my wardrobe, though.
And that's a good problem to have.
It is. Clothes are expensive now. But yeah, I've been buying pants at Sam's Club that now I'm back into a 34 pant where I was a 38. And even my shirts, I would have thought, the shirts will be fine. I put on a 2X shirt now, and I look like I'm wearing a dress. So I've got to start buying 1X and large shirts. So the whole, back to the whole CAV thing. So yeah, diagnosed as a stage 3 CAV, and they use a couple of different charts or scales, I guess you could say. One is a little more serious, and the other, they're kind of maybe not. And I kind of feel like maybe I fall in the hopefully, maybe not so serious scale. They put me on Repatha. I'm not tolerant of the statin drugs that would normally be used to fight it. So the Repatha is an injectable drug, similar to a statin, but not. It acts a little differently. So I do that every 14 days. For a while, I was doing it once every 30 days with a great big injection. But I guess the manufacturer quit making that one, and now it's twice a month. That and a couple other meds seem to have halted the progression, thank goodness.
Well, that's good then.
But
Now,
one of the
now are you back like, you were a level 3 there for a while, or have you raised it then? Is it getting better or?
No, it's not regressed. It's just kind of stopped getting worse. And when I got this news, it was a gut punch. I'd just been through transplant. It's only been a couple years, and here this is happening. And I'm the type of person that I will educate myself. Everything we talk about with the doctor, I will look it up. I'll read about it. I want to know everything because I don't want to be blindsided by ignorance. So when I talk to people about transplant, like, wow, this guy knows his medical terminology, and it's because I want to know it, But I've got a couple of friends. I'll just say her first name. Her name's Carrie, and she had a heart transplant when she was in her teens, and that one lasted about 18 years. And then she had a second heart transplant in her 30s. That one lasted about 8 years. She just recently passed away while trying to be listed for a third heart. In the end, it wasn't her heart that gave out, but she had severe CAV that was progressive, ruined the first heart and was ruining the second heart. And so that scared the hell out of me. I'm thinking, wow, I don't know I could face having another transplant. She was going for her third. I think what finally, and I don't know for sure, and this just happened recently, we think that her kidneys finally shut down, that they were just damaged from the heart not functioning correctly.
And the drugs will do that too, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the drugs too. Yeah. And now I've got
I was just going to say, I had, 2003 was my heart. And then 2015, I got a kidney transplant, and basically,
oh, wow.
all from the wonderful drugs. But hey, I'm still happy to be where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a friend, James. He's in the hospital right now, and he just received his second heart. And it started with, he had, like you, the mediated donor-specific rejection, or the antibodies that were fighting his heart, and they couldn't get it under control. And he, even to the point that he went from KU to Vanderbilt, and they ended up listing him for a second heart. And then over some time, because it takes time and you're waiting, and I think he's an O blood type. Eventually, KU took him back and decided, yes, we will list you. And he was transplanted about 10 days ago. He's doing pretty good. It was touch and go at first. He had a little pneumonia, post-transplant, which isn't abnormal. Slow to wake up, but he's finally up and conscious and eating and doing stuff. But in the end, what forced the issue again was the CAV was getting a hold of his heart. And that pushed things further forward faster for him. So since transplant, and almost immediately after transplant, during my healing process, on all the Facebook pages, which I kind of tell people, you got to take with a grain of salt, because you often see bad much more than you see the good, because people that are struggling or hurting or having a hard time are much more, vocal about it on these pages. And you don't see the people that are doing fantastic, just checking in saying I'm doing awesome.
Yeah, because now I was in, a support group, and I finally quit going because it was you were hearing all the bad news, and all the sad news, and I go, oh, I need to get out of here and stay positive.
Yeah,
it was actually getting me down, but it was still a great group, and a lot of support, and I appreciate that, but it just wasn't my thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it can really, when you're looking for the positive and finding a lot more negative, it can just scare the hell out of you. It just make you worry more. Like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. So I started mentoring people and talking with people, and I've always had that kind of nature and ability to communicate with people. But just being able to talk to people that were either going through heart failure or preparing to be transplanted, getting listed, and just sharing my experience. And, my story was, kind of a raving success. I went through a good experience. And everybody that I was talking to were like, Brian, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. And it's so helpful to talk to you about this. And I got a lot of positive feedback. So I just continued to do it. And I had gotten certified with the Gift of Life Network to be a mentor. I worked with Midwest Transplant Network to become a ambassador. And so there were no real set up avenues to do a lot of it because the COVID protocols had kind of wiped most of that out. And so it became harder to reach out and find patients. So I created a Facebook page. It's called Heart Transplant Support, and you can find it on Facebook. It's got about 7,800 members, and I'm getting about 100 new members a day. And it's inherently positive based. I screen everything that's posted to keep the creeps out and the junk and the spam. But through the past 3 years or so, I've mentored probably 3 or 4 dozen people through the process. And you build some wonderful relationships, and some of these relationships we become very close and we're friends and we talk a lot. Others, they take what they need and they move on, and that's fine. I'm not in it for much other than just helping the other people. Um, and then I've talked to people that I've lost. I think I've lost 4 people through the years, and I didn't realize at the time when I was doing this, building these relationships and having these conversations, and it's a camaraderie thing. And then to lose one of them, it's devastating.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Especially,
It
people,
really is.
people that were doing good and things like that. That's why I try to really stress too, to everyone that I speak to. I'm 22 years out. I am going for the record for the longest with a heart transplant.
Yeah.
But then I always tell people, you can beat my record when I have finished it.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the longevity and everybody knows the statistics. I won't even go into that. It's not awesome. And so that kind of radically changed my thought process and my way of life and how I see everything. And I told my wife one day, it's like, I can't keep living the way I'm living. It's just brutally unsatisfying knowing that my clock is ticking louder than most people's in the back of my head, and it will never go away. And each time I have a doctor visit, they mention like the CAV progression or whatever. I'm like, that there it is again, that tick, 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 tick. So at 52 now, I'm like, I've got to live my life a little faster and a little harder than I might have before. I want to do more and I want to see more. I really want to try and make those days count.
Now
And then it's hard to do. Go ahead.
Now here's the way I looked at things, and I don't know, everybody has their own thing, but I look at it as medical science changes on a daily basis. I like 22 months old, I had my first heart surgery. Had an experimental surgery in 1968. Seems like medical science just keeps catching up. And so I always say,
That's true.
Who knows what they're going to be able to do to folks in just the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's very true. And, my father mentioned the same thing to me when we were talking about some of this is, your longevity, the statistics may be what they are, but you've got to remember that, medical science is taking great strides forward. That may change dramatically for you. And I get that. But still, I can't help but think, tick, tick, tick in the back of my head. So live more intentionally, build better relationships, say the words that maybe you wouldn't say, just live a little more intentionally. And so I started doing that, and I started doing it through the mentorship, even just being more close, or I don't know, more intimate conversations or whatever. Um, and then one day, I thought to myself, "Yeah, I want to do more. I want to see more." And I craved adventure so badly. I hadn't been on a vacation. I still haven't been on a vacation since heart transplant, which is 3.5 years out. And I love to go places and see things and hike trails and sit on beaches. And so I told my wife, I said, I want to be able to do those things. I want to be able to see gorgeous places in the world, but I don't think we'll ever be able to afford that. But what if eventually, maybe, and if we can work through the hard parts to get there, what if we lived on a sailboat, and what if we traveled the world? She was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And she's still not totally on board with it, but she understands why and what my thought process is. Um, and I've been watching these YouTube sailing channels and stuff, and kind of became enamored with this one guy, James Evenson. He's sailing Zingaro on YouTube. It just seems like a genuine, decent human being that gets it. And so I wrote him a letter one day. I said, James, and I told him my story. I said, heart transplant, blah, 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 blah. And I said, the big question is, do you think this lifestyle would work for me? Do you think I could do this with my limitations? And surprisingly, he wrote me back in about 20 minutes. He's like, "Brian, you can do anything you want to do." And he's like, "Yeah, if you can overcome this hurdle and this hurdle and this hurdle, I think you could absolutely do it." So we talked back and forth a little bit, and I'm like, "Okay, maybe we can." And he says, instead of sitting on your butt, just take a step forward and make it happen. And so the next week, I bought a sailboat. My friends are like, "You're crazy." I bought a 24-foot Laguna sailboat. All my friends were like, "Well, if you're going to sail, you should get a little dinghy to start on." And I was like, "Yeah, let's just get a big boat." So a 24-foot boat, it's a pretty good size starter boat. And then I signed up for sailing lessons up at Lake Perry here in Kansas. And I got certified 101 and 102 for keelboat. And now I'm a keelboat skipper. And I've been sailing all summer.
Awesome.
And I love it. I am absolutely head over heels in love with sailing. So I told, I've shown my wife, look, I'm serious about this, and I've taken the steps to move forward to try to do this. And so she's embracing it a little more, and she's sailing with me. And she's like, I don't love it like you do, but I can see the potential for maybe a 3-year adventure, maybe after she retires. And so I started a Facebook, I do have a Facebook page. It's Donate Life Boat, but cooler yet, I started a YouTube channel, Donate Life Boat, 3 words. And I've been documenting how I rebuilt this boat and how I learned how to sail and the sailing trips I've been doing and all that stuff. And it's slowly growing traction, but I would hope one day to be a YouTuber and sailing the open sea and sharing that with everybody.
Awesome. Hey, because we are getting, the clock is ticking, but you said too, you met your donor? I mean, well, you didn't meet your donor, but you met the donor family?
Yeah, I didn't get to meet. I had written 3 letters over 3 years, and I try not to let them fall on the anniversary dates. And I know a lot of people will do that. And I didn't want to be that cruel reminder of, "Hey, you lost your child, but I'm thankful to be alive." So I would kind of off date them and send them a little either early or late. And I sent the 3rd letter out thinking I'm never going to get a response. And, I called one day to, who did I call? I called the Midwest Transplant Network. Actually, I emailed the Midwest Transplant Network, and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to make sure that my letters are actually making it to my donor family. I've written 3, I've not heard anything back." And sent that email off, and the next day I get a email back, and she says, Brian, you know what? We've been meaning to reach out to you. We think we have a letter for you. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so that day we kind of jumped back and forth. We were on the phone, emailing back and forth, like trying to find out, where is this letter? And it turned out that the transplant center that had harvested Travis's heart had forwarded the letter to me. And it was a holiday weekend. The letter was sitting in my mailbox. How weird is that? I find out I've got a letter, and it's already out there in my mailbox. And so I go out there, and sure enough, there it is. I get it. And, tears and shock and surprise and, oh my God. And, Mom had written me, and she said, I'm sorry it's taken so long. It's just been a hard couple of years. Understandable. And she proceeded to tell me all about Travis. His name was Travis Eater. He lived in Illinois. He was 27 years old. He was a father, but not married, and just seemed like an amazing young man. A lot of things similar about us. We both liked fast cars and motorcycles and that kind of thing. And she mentioned that he'd said one day he might want to be a chef, and I had been a chef for like 20 years. And so it made it even more real at that point. I got a couple of pictures of him, and I wrote her back with, a huge thank you for reaching out. And if you want to continue to have conversations or, build a relationship, I'm totally down for that. And I've not heard back, so I don't expect any more communication. But I was able to find his Facebook page and see more pictures of him. She didn't share with me how he died, but we suspect it was a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
So yeah, amazing feelings around that, and that letter came. I almost get a little bit teary when I talk about this. That letter came at a time my gratitude was probably at its lowest. I tell people I mentor about this, that, about the gratitude trap. Initially, when you were transplanted, you're overflowing with gratitude. I think in my hospital room, it was palatable, that everybody could feel it. And that will wane as you go through the process of healing and recovery and rediscovering your new life, getting used to your new normal. That gratitude goes up and down. And yeah, I think I was at the bottom, and I'd had some dark, intrusive thoughts. Why did I survive this? Why did this happen to me? Realizing in hindsight how much my heart condition over the years had really stolen from me, coming to terms with that. And then boom, this letter shows up out of the mail, and it was just like, oh, there it is again. It's overflowing. There's that gratitude, and I've needed that. So that's part of what I talk about with people that need someone to talk to about it. Mentorship for me has been everything, and it's helped a lot of people, but it's also been very cathartic for me to work through the process. Just sharing my story over and over again. I got to a place, I think about the third year, maybe 3.5 months. This isn't so long ago, that I came to a realization that I told my story so many times that I was telling a watered down version that was not emotionally impactful to me. And that realization, like it hurt me. Like it put me over the barrel for a couple of days. I wasn't telling the full story, or what I was masking the pain behind it, and the trauma. And that's what I try to tell people now is, and I don't try to scare the hell out of people. And I certainly don't share this stuff in the beginning, but post-transplantees, like, you're in survival mode when you're going through this, and you'll do whatever you need to do to get through it. And that's great. But after the fact, when your body is finally kind of healed, you start to unpack the trauma from it. And that can be brutal. And not to have somebody talk to you about it or that's gone through it can be even harder. So I remember there were some really dark days, and you think, oh my God, no, Brian, you got a heart transplant and you're healed and you didn't die. Well, it's not that easy emotionally. It was traumatic for me. About 80 days from the day I found out I need a heart transplant to being transplanted, brutally fast, and a lot of people find out, and it can be a year or more, it can be a long time. So yeah, year 2.5 and 3 have been working through all that, finding my feet, so to speak. I started to kind of write a book. I've never written a book. I don't know how to write a book. So when things come to me, I just write them down and I stick them away. I email them to myself and I put them in a folder. And maybe someday I can have someone help me put it together into some kind of form that would help, maybe, I don't know, either A, tell my story, or B, make it easier for other people.
Yeah, that's what I had to do. I had to find someone to help me write my book. More parts than a chicken nugget.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Hey,
and a lot of people have said to me, Brian, you should absolutely write a book. Your story's, amazing. And it wasn't until I had that conversation with James Zingaro, because he said the same thing. He's like, you need to write your story. And that's when I started. But I never had to that moment felt ready to tell the story, because it was still unfolding before me. And that's what I tell the transplant folks that I talk to is, this is a long road. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take you a lot of time, and you're going to want to jump up and go back to your normal life. But you've got to realize that normal life is now, warped or changed, shifted, completely different. So you got to embrace that.
And every journey is different too, which is always good to know.
Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time, but any last words before I let you go?
No, check out the Facebook page, Heart Transplant Support. If you want to look for a community to help, it's a wonderful place to communicate. I take messages there directly, and I will talk with anybody that wants to message me. I tell them I'll respond anytime, day or night, if you're struggling. Check out the YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to build viewership so I can hopefully monetize at some point and share my story with the entire world. I call it the Donate Lifeboat, purposely to start conversations about the importance of organ donation.
Thank you, Brian, for sharing your incredible story with all of us today. And be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. If you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and also don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate your 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, isn't just a medical story. It's a survival story filled with humor, hope, and heart. It'll make you laugh, maybe cry, and definitely believe in second chances. Get it now on Amazon. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my old radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill the Podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark, like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.